Casual Magic has been sponsored by Quiver, maker of the Quiver and Bolt deck cases and other fine deck holding accessories. Use the code CASUAL on their website for 10% off your order. We're also sponsored by Architect, the premier site for hosting your decks on the internet. I love them and they love me, and it seems like a good reason for you to use them. You can also support Casual Magic directly by going to our Patreon at patreon.com/ShivamB. And now, on with the show. Welcome to Casual Magic, the show where we talk about the fun side of Magic the Gathering. My name is Shivam, Bhatt, and Casual Magic is brought to you by Architect and Quiver and my patrons at patreon.com/ShivamB. Today I'm insanely excited because I have a person on the line who Magic fans you probably aren't going to know because he did a lot of work behind the scenes at WotC and also way more on D&D and Saga and Star Wars and all the other games that Wizards put out. And like, I don't know, Ultra Pro. Ultra Pro. Right? Like they're the guys. No, who the hell are the company down in LA? Upper Deck. They don't exist anymore.
They do.
They kind of do.
No, they exist.
They're weird. They did a lot of weird
always
things.
Weird.
Yeah, like I think a friend of mine, Patrick Sullivan, called them like a criminal organization that makes cards.
Well, they're not that far off.
Yeah, but my friend here, who's been my friend and mentor for like 30 years or whatever, however long we've known each other. Single moniker king Stan ! Stan here. I first met you in like 1997 or something like that on the Dragonlance mailing list when I was a wee lad of like 16 and thought everything was awesome and everything was my favorite. And it turns out I'm still exactly that guy. Everything is awesome and everything is my favorite.
Excellent. Well, that's a life well lived.
Because I remember like you were one of the primary designers of Dragonlance 5th Age, and back in the day when we were all very, very active in the mailing list, we just seem so naive these days, like game designers being that up and front and center with people. It's like,
I mean, it was a completely different world. It was a completely different world, right? I mean, you talk about the mailing list. That's all there was. That was as close as you could get.
Yeah, there was a mailing list and there was like the news groups on like the alt fan, whatever. And there's like none of this, like, you know, social media or texting or directly in your face. But it was awesome though. And it was a delightful halcyon time when fans could just sit and argue minutia and you would just be like, I wrote that and this is what I thought and said. And it's funny because I remember when I met you, or one of the years I met you, you drew me a comic where it's literally me standing in front of you going, oh my God, Stan, you're my favorite. And then the next panel is me standing in front of Steve Miller. Oh my God, Steve, you're my favorite. Well, and then me standing in front of Larry Elmore. Oh my God, Larry, you're my favorite.
That's exactly how my meeting you in person went.
And of course, like now Gavin Verheyen made me into a card, the keeper of the favorite things, because it's literally just
right.
It turns out that I've never stopped being a guy who likes a lot of things. Oh my goodness!
I think I sent you a drawing for that too.
You did. You drew a picture of me and like 4 of my favorite random Magic cards,
right? And
just being like, "Look, it's my favorite." I think I even got a version of that printed out on a proxy card to use because it's just cool. Yeah, man, it's so great to talk to you.
Good to talk to you too. Even after 30 years, I still remember.
Well, I mean, to be fair, we have run into each other quite often in the intervening decades. So it's not like I haven't talked to you in 30 years.
Right. But, you know, life being what it is. And
maybe it's more like 5 years at this point or something.
Yeah, I think the last time we talked, I called you earlier this year about a project I had questions about.
Yeah.
But the last time I saw you was probably 2018.
Yeah, right before pandemic, because we brought Kiddo up to Seattle to hang out.
It was very close to the end of the last time I was contracting at Wizards. I was a D&D producer in 2016, 2017, and 2018.
Yeah, so like one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you, beyond the fact that, you know, we've been friends for a billion years, is because you have seen the games industry, especially the tabletop role-playing industry, grow in huge leaps from like very niche nerd topics to now like Madison Square Garden, like friggin' Critical Role. What the
Yeah.
hell is?
Yeah. No, it's
When I was a
kind of crazy.
16-year-old, if you told me that a bunch of D&D nerds would be like filling stadiums, I would have thrown you into a locker myself.
Right.
And more importantly, you've also like designed games by the pound. And so I just, that sort of thing fascinates me greatly because as I've grown, I've also dabbled in game design and I've worked for video game companies and whatever. And this stuff's hard, man.
It is. It is. But you know, it seems to me that most people who do this get into it for passion.
Hmm.
That lasts for a certain amount of time, and then most of the people, when that wears off, they move on to another thing. And some people like me just aren't smart enough to move on. No, I mean, no, but the truth of the matter is that game design is one of the smallest parts of what I do these days. I'm
Yeah.
really trying to focus on cartooning, which has always been my biggest love and the hardest nut to crack.
Yes. that is a tough one because like yeah, for as long as I've known you, you've done doodles and cartoons and like
By the
just
time you knew me, I had a, a cartoon
books.
running in Dungeon magazine. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
remember that. That was super cool. And like, because I know you back when we first met, you used to tell me all about like Stan Sakai and like all your favorite comic artists and everything.
yeah,
And like, yeah, your comics were very funny and very cool, but that is such a hard industry to break into.
it really is.
I mean, I feel like I don't need to tell you,
No, you're not telling me. We're telling the listeners.
right? Yeah.
I mean, yeah, say I thought at several points in my life, I thought, you know what, I'm good because I've picked three different things I do, and so they'll kind of work together. Unfortunately, I picked three of the hardest things to do, and so they're all constantly fighting for each other for which is delivering least.
Oh my oh my god, dude. I'm I am a content creator for a card game. You want to talk about delivering the least? We can do that. Don't let my wife hear. Um, goodness gracious me. But let's go back a couple dozen steps to more happier times.
Sure.
When did you find D&D or like role playing or tabletops or whatever? Presumably in the caveman days of you growing up, they had tables which
So
had tops
yes,
on them.
D&D has been around for 51 years now, and I have been playing it for 47 of them.
That's insane.
Yeah, so 1979 or late 78, 79 was I'd heard about it and I got to play it a little, and late 79 I owned my first products.
Was it like the original box?
So the very first, here we go, doing this on video so I can grab something over here to show you. The very first product I ever owned was the
D&D coloring album?
Advanced Dungeons and Dragons coloring album, because
Is that the original one you had?
no, I had to get
Oh,
another one. The first one got lost in my parents moved out of the house I grew up in. Um,
I didn't know there was an AD&D coloring album.
oh yes, it is a fantastic, and I keep it around because I bring it up all the time. It is one of the best intro products for people, for young people who have no idea about what it is, because it's both a coloring book and it's got a story written by Gary Gygax.
Oh, geez.
And in the center spread, there's a game
Huh.
that you can play, and in along with the stories, there's rules for the game, and so it introduces you to the concept of D&D. It introduces you to what your characters are going to be doing, because there's a story that you follow, and it gives you basically a super simple version of the dungeon board game. That's,
That's
I mean,
wild.
it isn't rules wise. It's not that, but for comparison, it's basically that. It's a little move from room to room, kill the things that are in it, get the treasure. You're looking for a certain treasure. When you get it, you win.
I mean, that's 1970s D&D right there.
Yep.
You know,
And so, but I mean, when I got this, I knew what D&D was.
mm,
I had played a few times, and I couldn't get. I wanted to get a box set, and they were sold out. But they
mm,
had that, and so I wasn't leaving that store without something.
mhm. I
And
know that feeling.
yeah, and then
I
the
mean,
next thing I got was the Holmes box set, the
mm,
Blue Book box set.
yeah, like I just recently got my son the D&D Lego set that came out,
Yeah,
which was like a beautiful, huge inn you can build with a dragon, and it's just like I would have killed for it if I was a kid, but it came with an adventure, and I was like, "This is the smartest thing ever because we can build this D&D set, and then we can play with the little figurines and play D&D through the Lego thing." And I'm like, I don't know why it took you guys 50 years to get to this, but this is
well,
how you do
mainly one of the reasons is they didn't listen to me.
it.
Of the things, if we're going to talk about my game design
Yeah.
career, the thing that I've done the most of, and I have the biggest passion for, is designing games for uh, ease of play, and particularly for people who haven't played for, like
Mhm.
form factors for it that can
For new
introduce
players?
people to playing role playing.
Mm.
Right? I mean, you can look at. I did not. I was not one of the people who designed the Saga system, the Dragonlance Fifth Age. I was worked on the team that followed up on that, but I was
Yeah.
involved in building what would have been the second version of it. I did the rules for, or I did the. I don't want to go too far on what I say I did, but for the Marvel Saga
Yeah, I was
game,
like, did you work with
I
Steve
worked
Kenton
with
on
Mike
that?
Selinker on that,
Mhm.
and he did the Marvel side of it and the supers powers side of it, and I and he did the basic design of mechanically how the card deck was going to be different than the Dragonlance card deck. But
Mm.
I wrote the rules section of that book.
Yeah, like, the Saga system was a weird it was really interesting. It used I mean, it was considered weird for all of us who were dice players at the time,
Yeah,
but it used, like, effectively a deck of cards to
not
do the rules
effectively.
resolution.
It used a an original deck. It wasn't just any old deck.
No,
It
it
was
was like it was a custom built deck for the game, and it was really fun, but for me, the adventures that were out at the time were like the rule system was a rule system. It was cool and stuff, but I've always been like, I don't care what the engine underneath is. I just want to play.
yeah.
And the stories that you guys told is why I was so enthralled by it. Because I think that I've read so many things you have published over the years. And you remain, and I know this is cliche, we literally just went over it, but you're one of my favorite game designers because of your stories are just so much fun to play through.
Aw,
And like
thank you.
that's why I just really enjoyed like the saga system stuff because like you guys created. So for those of you who don't know, and I'm going to divulge my Dragonlance history. Normally, I don't bring it over to this podcast, but I don't care. It's my show. Um, Dragonlance started as second edition D&D, and it followed the novels, and then they got to a novel where there was a big apocalyptic moment called Dragon of Summerflame. Everything died. Margaret and Tracy left the company. There was a bad fallout, blah blah blah, whatever. Dragonlance was dead, and then a team at Wizards or TSR at the time, I don't remember, was it Wizards or
It
TSR?
was TSR. It was
TSR.
TSR.
Yeah, they went and they're like, hey, what if we take Dragonlance and say, what does it look like in this post apocalyptic world and bring a brand new system to go with it? And they created this brand new world that had really great stories and really great development of the world and the continent. And I was one of its biggest, loudest fans. And I think the
I don't.
problem, hmm?
I was to say I don't know how deeply you want to go into this here, or if you want to do it on your Dragonland show. But
Hit me, dude.
uh, so a few of the things you said uh, are miss some of the key elements, and one is that the intention of Dragons of Summerflame was to close down Dragonlance. That happened before I got there.
Yeah, I believe
Marvin
it.
and Tracy and TSR had their problems. They wanted to do one more big book. It would wrap everything up. It would close the book literally on the
It
characters
feels
that
like
they
every
created.
time Weiss and Hickman come back to Dragonlance, it is to close the book on
Right.
Dragonlance.
And then that book hit the New York Times bestsellers list for like a month or
It
more.
was
And
great.
TSR, the powers that be at TSR said, well, maybe we don't want to stop doing this. And so they assigned a group. They said, well, and they also didn't they didn't want Dragonlance to be connected to D&D
Mm,
for licensing reasons, for the ability to license it out differently, to have it be something that sat apart, because they were having that. We know.
mm.
Come on, Chip, and we know they made some epically bad business deals that
Boy, did they.
tied up properties. And so D&D was tied up in a lot of ways, and the thought came in that if they could make Dragonlance tied to this new game, then Dragonlance would be open for
Different licensing deals?
being exploited in a business
Mm.
sense. So, and this was before I got there. So I
Yeah,
got to
when did you get to
CSR.
TSR?
I got to CSR about 5 months, 3 or 5 months before the Fifth Age box launched.
Wow, really?
Well, maybe a little longer than that, but not much. It was design was done. It was going to the printer,
Huh.
uh, and so the Saga game was designed by Bill Connors and Skip Williams, and it had been done, but neither one of them wanted to stick around and do it, work on the game and Dragonlance long term. And I was a new guy, and I was in the group that had that in, and I wanted to do design, and so I jumped in wholeheartedly.
Well, it was cool. I mean,
Right.
I think ultimately there were two issues that led to it being such a challenge for the audience, and one is the setting moved forward and changed drastically, and then the system moved and changed drastically. I think if one or the other had happened, it would have been easier to swallow, but having a full wholesale change maybe was a little bit much for the audience at the time.
Maybe there were a lot of
And just all
assumptions,
bitter
a
old
lot of
men.
bad assumptions that were made, a lot of unfortunate happenstance, a lot of bad luck that went along with it, and then not surprisingly, Margaret and Tracy, who thought they had shut it down, were a little put out by this. Uh,
Sudden
the
brand new
Suddenly the
Dragonlance that
game was
exists.
coming back again. Now we worked particularly with Margaret. Like she lived in the same, well, not the same town, but one town over, and everyone knew her. I didn't at the time, but so she gave comments, and but she didn't want to be involved, and so uh, so wasn't. But then turns out later that they did kind of want to be involved.
boy, boy, did they. I mean, look, in the interest of keeping my existing relationships with people, we're just going to leave it at that.
Right.
But
I mean, and fair enough, right? There's a lot of stories of
just
infighting and backbiting, and
yeah.
people's noses getting bent out of shape, and someone's mad at someone else, and someone's mad at someone else. Look, that I understand from a creative perspective, they're what they wanted. I understand from my perspective, I was a guy working on a thing, and I understand that their business and the head of our business couldn't work together, and
Mm,
so there was a lot of people caught in the middle.
yeah. It was, I mean, it was definitely tough for you guys because, like, I know, like, when we were, like, on the mailing list and all hanging out and all being excited about this, like, you and Steve Miller and Sue Cook and Miranda Horner, all these people, you guys were all so excited to join us and you had passion and you were young designers and it was really just vibrant and stuff. And then there's, like, this upper level of politics of just TSR's mismanagement and
Yeah,
Weiss and Hickman being, like, reasonably understandably pissed off about any
yeah,
number of things going on with their relationship with TSR and what they see is happening to their baby. And I'm like, well, it's not your baby. It's work for contract. Welcome to
yeah,
hell. But like the end result, though, is that there were a lot of really, really good adventures written at the time. There were really good stories, and there were things that helped me as a kid grow up to understand how to tell stories and how the nature of like triumphing through acts and traversing through acts and making like moments matter and how to get tension and how to get release. And I just thought it was a really great like the Saga Adventures were written in such a way that they also acted as a really good primer for how to tell stories.
Yeah.
And that was just really useful to me because I was like 16, 17, 18 when this is the stuff that matters, So like I liked it.
Yeah, well, thank you. And you know what? And over the years, I have met a, a a good number of people. The problem was that the sales were so low on it
Yeah.
that
You've met everybody who bought it.
I very well may have. But the people that bought it had a lot of good things to say about it, but that didn't matter, right? Like I say, it was a crossing of lots of some bad decisions and some bad luck, and some uh,
Timing.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, like
I
you
mean,
were
that
there.
card game. You talk about that card game. It, I the audience writ large, the gaming audience, wasn't ready for that.
Yeah.
Right? I think that if people that discover it now look at it and come out saying, "Wow, where has this been all my life?" And the answer was that in 1995, the audience wasn't ready for it, and so poof, it's
Yeah,
gone.
I mean that's exactly it because like Magic had yet to really make the kind of epic splash on pop culture. And so like people were not used to this notion of playing games with cards. I mean, yeah, 1990 like the game Magic comes out in 93, 94 and it's getting really big, but when I was there was a gigantic gulf between the D&D role player types and the Magic card
Yeah,
players, dice chuckers and card floppers. And if we had had any inkling of where it's going, a card-based RPG system seems like a very easy sell in today's market
yeah,
because everybody's used to what cards are. And then you would be like, "Look, I'm selling you expansion sets for your
yeah.
D&D."
It's there's so much going into that, like so many reasons why. I mean, role players in general like to roll their dice. Right?
Mhm.
The people who have been playing D&D, the people who've come in it from that angle, it's a hard sell to give up the dice. It's a slightly different version, but role playing as a hobby has grown up a lot in the last 25 years. It,
Mm,
and it's developed the what used to be just a small fringe of people is now a market on its own.
right. Isn't it crazy?
Yeah,
Now, that means that you were there when Wizards bought TSR.
I sure was.
Was that a weird time? Because, like, I know, like, TSR had tried to make their own card game to match with Wizards. Uh,
Oh, so now, okay. They did not try. They did, and they succeeded in that. Spellfire
I have the Dragonlance expansion.
Spellfire sold great. It didn't sell magic numbers, right? If the measurement is, did it compete with magic at the same level? No.
But no
No.
game in the 1994
But
did.
but they sold a lot of Spellfire cards. Spellfire was super popular with a different group, and it's a group of people that didn't want to play a game like Magic. Magic is a very regulated, like it's built for the kind of competitive
Mhm.
nature that you get in a $1 million uh, tournament structure.
Yeah.
Spellfire is a whoopsie doop doo, and you couldn't build $1 million structure on it because the game is so unpredictable. It it really is a beer and pretzel style game, but
Yeah.
I'm telling you, they sold a ton of those, and the problem that one of the problems that we encountered when Wizards bought the company was that Card R&D had a theory that Magic was how any card game that's out there ought to be like that, and
Mm,
that they didn't have a place in their hearts for silly games
mm.
like that.
Yeah, I mean,
And on top of that, the business team also is like, well, why are we selling cards to when we could sell more Magic cards? And the answer that they never got, and I've seen this in so many companies that I've worked for and with over the years. They didn't understand that it really was a different audience. That the people that were buying lots of Spellfire cards were never going to buy a lot of Magic cards.
Mm.
So what they really were, they should look at it as is this is a secondary audience, which is not making the same amount as Magic, but it's making a lot of money.
I mean, that's true. And you can see, like, you can understand why the bean counters who are doing the consolidation are like, we have a card game.
They don't
Why do we need two
they,
card games?
they don't understand. They don't
Audience
understand the idea
fragmentation.
that just because you're playing one card game doesn't mean you will play any card game.
Right.
And
Right.
I think that the thing that Spellfire had successfully done when TSR was doing it was identify an audience that preferred that game and weren't it's anyone that wanted to play the best game would have played Magic. Anyone that wanted to play a game that they could have a few beers while they were playing at and play 6 games in a night and
I mean, one of the big problems of Magic right now is because it is such a huge umbrella that it's such a large game that just has so many millions and millions of players that there's like a number of fragmentations happening within where people are like, look, I want to play beer and pretzels multiplayer with my friends. I want to play competitive tournament. And Wizards has to put out cards for both of these audiences. And when the beer and pretzels guys get these tournament cards, they're like, what is this crap? I can't even use it. And the tournament guys are like, why are these beer and pretzels use taking my, like, why are all of my cards getting tainted with this 12 mana crap that I can't do anything with? And it's like, there should be 2 different games or 7 different games. We can have multiple games. It's okay. It's like if somebody went and said, hey, Super Mario exists, so we can't have Mario Kart.
Yeah.
Like, they're not the same game at all. They're not even in the neighborhood. Because, I mean, I remember like the mid 90s when the TCG boom was happening and you had like Sim City, the card game, and Legend of Five Rings and Magic and Spellfire and Jihad and, all these other like infinite like variety of just weirdo games when everybody's just throwing crap at the wall and seeing what happens.
Well, I mean, the ones that succeeded there, the ones that you can point at that succeeded, were the ones that did something different than Magic and found an audience that liked that kind of game. The reasons that Legend of the Five Rings grew such a devoted audience, it stuck around to the point that they're still sticking around today because they created a kind of game that a certain number of people, which is a smaller group than the number of people who want to play Magic, but these people that's the kind of game they want, and Legend of the Five Rings gives it to them, and Magic never will, and that's okay.
I love L5R. Just you wrote an L5R novel too. That was super
my
fun.
first novel was an L5R novel, the Crab Clown.
Crab. I think I still have it on my bookshelf. It's super fun. Did that come out before Odyssey of Gilthanas came out?
Yes.
The L5R books were super fun. I really enjoyed them. But I'm still a Lion Clan at heart, and it's never going to go away.
It's all right. I forgive you.
Yeah, when you're old, you play a lot of cards. I've played a lot of games. But what was that like when, like, if you're working at TSR and you're designing all this stuff, what was it like when Wizards came in? Because I know they had thoughts on Saga.
The Wizards or TSR in the winter of '96 had basically shut down. It didn't shut down, but they stopped publishing.
Really?
Oh yeah. How do you not know this?
It didn't feel like it from the outside.
The people telling you the stories of the Christmas layoff in '96?
Dude, it's the games industry. There's a Christmas layoff of every year.
Not in the '90s. There wasn't.
Okay, that's fair.
So in everything, we knew there was problems at TSR with there was cash flow problems. They owed money to their printers. They owed money a couple of different places, and sales were not doing awesome. We got to see the suits bringing bankers through every once in a while. So we knew there were problems. And then the day before Christmas vacation, they laid off half the company.
Jeez.
Out of nowhere. We came in one morning and everyone was told to just hang around by their desks. Their phone might ring or someone might come and get them. And people got half the company got let go.
That's insane.
More. But they kept the other half. but they were out of their printer wouldn't print anything else until they paid for it, and uh, they were trying to get the money to get everything going again. So they kept the people that they kept. We kept making material, but things stopped coming out. Like that.
Hmm.
That's how the world knew there was a problem. Was not that TSR missed some game releases, because that would happen sometimes,
Yeah.
but Dragon and Dungeon the magazine, which never missed an
Right.
issue, stopped coming out, and so nothing was being published from December of '96 until after the buyout. That those 6 months, nothing was coming out. But we were there, and we kept thinking every pay period that, okay, they're going to pay us, and then they're going to we're going to come in on Monday, that they're going to be changed on the floor. So it was a really difficult time for those of us who were still in the building, because we had deadlines, we had projects we were working on, but all the stuff we also had a growing backlog of things that were supposed to be printed. So
Mm.
already, that's one of the bonuses when after Wizards did buy them, was suddenly there was a whole spew of things that could just go to press. But yeah, so that the 4 or 5 months in '97 was when the negotiations started, and it was April or May when the deal was done, somewhere around then. So there were 3 or 4 months of us working in TSR on products, and just no hope of whether or not they'd ever come out, or
That's
whether we
crazy.
would have jobs in 3 weeks.
That's that's such a weird. And were you getting paid at least?
Yeah, no, we're getting paid.
Okay, well that's something, because like otherwise you're just volunteering. And it's like,
Oh
what the
no,
hell's
no,
going?
no, no, no. That's that. Lorraine kept enough people to do this, and she paid. Lorraine Williams, the owner of TSR, is a controversial figure in
Boy,
the
is
history
she.
of D&D. Uh, there are many bad things that can be said about her. There are many good things that are lesser known, and one of them is that, among everything else, she paid everyone basically out of her pocket. She kept half the staff around and kept paying us. Now, it was in her interest to do that, right? Her thought was that it would be easier to sell a company that had this creative staff and was producing things, and it wouldn't
Mm.
be to sell an empty building and
I
an
mean, these
IP.
days, if they were going to do acquisition, they would just sell an empty building and all the assets, and
Yeah,
then let you guys go.
yeah. But uh, she had a very and she's still around, and I presume she still has these opinions. She had a very uh, uh, feudal look at the company, and the people that worked for her were her serfs, where they worked, and she, and as the lord of the manor, and I'm sure she didn't think of it this way, but it really was a good parallel. As the lord of the manor, it was her responsibility to care for the people under her. Now, they were still serfs. We were just the creatives, but it was her responsibility to make sure we got paid and everything happened, and we just shouldn't worry our little heads about the big business stuff. Just go and do your little gaming designing things, and you're getting paid, and everything will work out. Buy yourself something pretty.
That's crazy. That seems like such backwards business idea. But I mean, hey, you know what? She kept it long enough for Wizards to at least come in.
Yeah,
And I remember from the fan side, we were like so bitter that Magic Money came and bought D&D.
we weren't. There were people who didn't accept, and people who did accept but never could really handle
Adapt.
the there are people who took it very personally that Magic saved D&D, and it hurt them to their core, and they didn't wind up sticking around just because D&D was
Mhm.
always going to be second to Magic at Wizards, which money wise it always should have been. But there are people that to whom, yeah, that just like the fans, they took it very personally, and then there are other people who were just like, sure, I'm glad to have a nice paycheck.
You know
Seattle's
what,
a
man?
nice place to live.
You get to keep writing adventures, and somebody's giving you money. Let's go with that. Like whatever. Like the corporate masthead doesn't matter to some tier when you're down in the creative swamps and you're like, I just want to work. And it's like, hey, dude, you're paying me to keep doing the thing I was doing. Okay.
Yeah.
Like Alternity was awesome. I remember when you guys put that out. Like it was a weird system. I remember the first time, because I was a freshman in college, I went to my gaming club, and the first time I got to play Alternity, my friend was running it, and I rolled a 20 on my first like attack, and I was like, look, I crit. And he's like, your gun jams and explodes in your hand. I'm like, what the hell? He's like, yeah, in Alternity 20s are fails. And I'm like, screw this system. But
Alternative was a very interesting game.
It was a fun campaign.
Bill and Bill Slavacek and Rich Baker were the core designers on it, and it was yeah, they're both really good, and they put out a very interesting game that again wasn't probably right for the time, for its era. It and an audience that wanted D&D.
It's, sci-fi is a hard sell. Like I know you did D20 Modern. Like, how did that go?
How did that go? I'm not even sure. What do you mean? How did that go?
Well, I mean, like, what was the response to that? Like, do you think the audience cared about modern age like cars and D&D?
Oh yeah, I think there is, just given the number of other games out there that do that.
I
Now
guess
the
that's
question is, do the people who are playing D&D want that? Well, no, it was always a kind of like Saga, kind of like the Fifth Age game. It was a sub audience, but it was also the D20 era. So
yeah.
anyone that was playing D20 wanted. I
Yeah.
think that there was the biggest problem that D20 Modern had as a game being produced by Wizards of the Coast was that you couldn't take D&D stuff and just plop it into D20 Modern. The rules were enough different, if not mechanically. You were doing the same things, right? You had the same stats, you had the same thing, but the balance of how much damage you were going to output and how much damage you could take and how much damage you could heal was very different. And so you couldn't one-to-one take a D&D, a third edition D&D monster, drop them in against the same level of characters in D20 Modern and expect to get anything close to the same results.
Now, I did run a D20 Modern campaign in college called the Insurance Company of Elemental Evil, which used the Temple of Elemental Evil, but they were like, hey, look, the Illithids are coming and they're like shaking you down. It's like, if you don't bribe us, we're going to have your house is going to flood or light on fire or have an earthquake hit it. It was super fun. It was super fun.
That's awesome.
Look, man, never underestimate the creativity of people who are just looking to laugh. But yeah, like, so did you like when you were there in like the early days and the integration and everything, did you run into a lot of like magic and like early magic design, like the designers and stuff, or did the D&D group and the magic group stay completely separate?
No, we were all on the same floor. There's one floor that had RPGA, and in one little section, the D&D, RPG, R&D, the R&D, the research and development team was card R&D and RPG R&D, and we were on the same floor with a set of meeting rooms that split them. So we definitely had, this is our area and that's their area, and you just walk down the hall to get between the two. They felt pretty different.
Yeah, I would imagine. It's like the old grognards and then the young upstarts over there. It's like,
there were a lot of people there that were big D&D fans. There were a lot of our guys who were big Magic players. So there was a lot of, personally, there was a lot of crossover. Like there were a lot of people who got to be friends and game together.
Yeah.
But institutionally, there was a wall between them.
Mm.
And there was quite literally a wall between them.
Yeah. And I mean, it makes sense because, like, we're nerds. We play all these games. We like games. That's why we're dealing with this stuff. So, like, it was a lot of it was just like it felt like the console wars, except for tabletop games, where it's like, if you're a Magic player and you're a D&D player, we'll never ever talk. I'm like, dude, shut up. We all own both of everything. It doesn't matter. Chill out.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it's right that kind of like the split between uh, Magic and Spellfire. There are some people that only wanted to play card games, and there's some people that only
Yeah,
wanted to play D&D
but we had a
or
choice, so
role
it's
playing
okay.
games. But yeah, for the most part, everyone plays everything.
Yeah. It's like whatever, man. Like, especially these days, like at the most recent Magic Con, which was in Chicago or whatever, they had a whole section dedicated to D&D. And
Hmm.
like they had like people playing D&D and teaching people how to play D&D and people running D&D campaigns in Magic settings. I'm like, look, this is the dream we all wanted in
Yeah,
1997. It's finally come past. And
boy,
like Wizards has realized it's got two things that can mix. Peanut butter and chocolate don't hate each other forever.
that was a that was a long time coming. It was much too long,
Right?
and I'm not because it's been said so often publicly. I'm not spilling any tea to say that it was the Magic brand team didn't want that. They did not want their peanut butter and our chocolate to mix.
Oh,
We,
I
in
believe it
fact,
100%.
yeah, there were 3 attempts at it while I was there, and the Magic brand team was responsible for squashing them all.
Complete missed opportunity. And I mean, it took like James Wyatt, dear friend of both of ours,
Yeah.
to like actually sit there and bridge that gap between the two, because he just went on his own volition and was like, I've already built the world guide for this setting. I'm just gonna write some rules and call it a D&D thing and
Well, I
put a
mean,
PDF out.
he didn't. I mean, he did do that, but he didn't just do it on his own. He went to his boss and said, "Hey, how about if I do this as a web article?" And the boss is like, "Sure, I don't care."
But
Or
we
probably more
can.
like, "Yeah, it sounds like a good idea. I don't understand it." He's like, "Don't worry, I do."
I mean, look, it worked, right? Like it worked. It got interest. It got the crossover to understand that there's an audience there.
Yeah,
And sometimes you have to get the people who pay for things to understand that there's an audience, right? Like,
it's yeah, it was so weird. It was so weird. The the business people, the high up business people, wanted
mm,
there to be crossover. It made sense from an institutional
sure.
perspective. The next level down, the business people running the people running the business of specifically the Magic of the Gathering business,
Mm,
as opposed to the Wizards of the Coast Magic of the Magic of
yeah.
the Gathering IP business.
Mm,
The people running the business of the card game did not want it to happen.
mm.
And
Purists.
yeah, so I'll tell you again a story that's been told a bunch. So I don't mind telling it again. Uh, there was a point where Peter Atkinson, this was before the Hasbro buyout, was still president of Wizards of the Coast, and got up at an all hands meeting. This is after we'd been there a year or two, and there had been two attempts to do a Magic D&D product that had gotten squashed. And he got up at an all hands meeting and talking about his vision for what would happen next. And he basically said, "And we haven't had a Magic and D&D product yet. I don't understand why this is going to happen. I'm standing here in front of all of you saying, I want this to happen. Make it happen." And
Hmm.
we said, "Great." And
What a
so,
brilliant idea. Nobody has ever thought of.
well, no, we were smart enough not to be sarcastic about it. We
Yeah,
said,
well, good.
"We're on it." And so I was involved with a group that was doing that, and we said, "All right, look, the Magic team doesn't like it, and they don't want us mucking up their stuff. So
Hmm.
how about if we just make a monster book that uses their creatures, and we can use
That would have been so
just their
sick.
art, like all the card art,
Yeah.
and we can use their writers and go to their writing team, so we get the lore right and we write it up, and then in each entry we have a D&D stat.
Oh my god, that would have been the coolest thing in the world.
Yes, it would. And we're like, so look, we're not going to do anything to piss them off. We're not going to pee in their in their cornflakes. We're not going to. I know this is a clean show, but that's
there's a lot of peeing going on, man.
And that'll be it, right? And we'll pitch it, and we can even print it, instead of making it like a D&D product, which is nothing like the Magic stuff. We can do it as like a coffee table art book to feature their art, right? It'll feature their art. It'll be their stories and their stuff, and you'll now be able to use them in D&D because we'll put these stat blocks in there.
Oh my god, dude!
So we have a meeting. We propose this. We have a meeting with the Magic brand team about this, and it's David Weiss was in there. I was in there. A couple of other people who were going to be doing the design were in there. James Wyatt might have been in there. I don't remember exactly. There were a couple of other people, but we pitched it just like I described it to you. And the Magic team sitting there listening and nodding and looking at us, and they said, okay, but what do we get out of this? They literally said this to us. What do we get out of it? And we said, we looked at it, we're stammering. David Wise was, no, but it's, we're going to make it an art book. And like, well, if we want to do an art book, we could do an art book. What do we get out of you doing this? It's, well, but we do this, and it adds that the D&D players can play your thing. You're like, that doesn't help us. That helps you. You get all our stuff. What do we get out of it? And after about 15 minutes, he said, but all right, what do you get out of it? Peter, last week stood up and said he wanted this to get done. And they said, Peter says stuff all the time. If we slow roll you, we just kind of draw this out in 2 months tops, something else is going to have his attention, and he's never going to remember it. And so,
oh my god.
And that's what happened.
I'm so upset right now. That could have been the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, it would have been. It would have been pretty damn cool.
Wow, that's infuriating.
I've been carrying that around for 25 years. No, and like I say, I've heard other people tell that story. I've told that story before. It's kind of
whatever. None of those people are at the company anymore. It doesn't even matter.
James Wyatt is.
Well,
and he got the last laugh.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like, times have changed enough that the cross-pollination is now. I mean, we have 2 D&D Magic sets, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
Right. Like, we have Forgotten Realms cards in Magic the Gathering. I tried so hard to get them to give me a Dragonlance set. So it goes. Look, dude.
You never know.
Someday.
It could happen.
There's one person who lives at the intersection of Dragonlance and Magic, and they will call me when they need that time. But that means like only 2 years after Wizards bought TSR, Hasbro bought them.
Yeah.
So that must have been a weird transitory time.
Yeah, that was a weird time. But it was nothing like the when TSR, we weren't going out of business. Wizards wasn't. We were doing fine. And I mean, the fact of the matter is that at that point, the management team was making a decision between accepting this offer from Hasbro or doing an IPO and going public. One of those two things was going to happen.
And Hasbro's like, here's a bag of money, and they're like, sounds like a plan.
Yeah, I mean, Peter's talked about this. When he started Wizards, he had sold stock to friends, and there was not really any money. He wanted to get payouts for everyone, and either IPO or this sale. Now, the IPO could have gone great, but maybe it wouldn't. The Hasbro thing was a lot of guaranteed money for a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you hooked up with Hasbro, which
Which is
everyone knew at
one
the
of the
time
biggest
had
toy
its
company in the world, right?
challenges. It's-
Yeah.
but
Mm.
it also had a lot of advantages.
I mean, people like to crap on Hasbro for many very good reasons, but I also like to think of the fact that my two favorite games exist and are hugely popular around the world because Hasbro has not cut their lifeline, right? Like, so there's something to be said.
Yeah, kind of. You know what? Kind of like Lorraine Williams. Hasbro is very complicated, and there's very easy to find some negative things to say. It's a
Boy,
little harder, but no less true to find a lot of good things to say.
yeah. What was your time at Upper Deck like? Because like eventually you did leave Wizards because like
Well, yeah, I got
probably
caught
just
in
pain
one
in
of
the
the
ass for everything.
layoffs in 2002. I got caught in one of the layoffs, and I spent about 3 years doing freelance. I was co-founded a PDF publishing uh, company with some other ex Wizards folks. It's called The Game Mechanics,
Yep.
and that was not generating a lot of money, and so I wound up taking a job at Upper Deck as a initially as a writer. Within 4 months, I was in charge of the writing department. I didn't, not because I wanted to be. Well, no, I had a choice, but I didn't come in there trying to do that. I was like, you know what? I in my time at Wizards had gone into the management route. I was a creative director for the
Mm,
last 2.5 years I was there, and I missed just writing. So when I went to Upper Deck, I applied for and got a job just as one of the writers on staff. And they
mm.
had their own problems that they needed to correct, and the person that was correcting them knew me pretty well, and so came to me and said, "Look, here's what I'm thinking about doing to correct all this." And he's draws an org chart of where everyone's going, and I'm noticing I'm not on the org chart. I'm like, this is the longest way to tell me I'm fired I've ever seen. And then at the end, he writes my name at the top of that org chart. Is
Oh no.
I want you to run the writing. Uh, is the creative content? No, that was that was TSR. Uh, Whatever. It was the
Yeah,
writing and editing part of the game
sure.
side.
What games did you work on there? Did you work on the WoW TCG or anything?
Yes, I was there when we did the WoW TCG and a whole bunch of versus
Yeah. A
product.
lot of Magic alums worked on that.
Yeah, yep,
Like, I think Huey was there,
yep.
Kibler,
Hewitt,
etc.
Kibler, Justin Gary.
Yeah.
Um,
Like a lot of just Hall of Famers just
yeah.
showing up there. And
So
everything
yeah,
I've
we
heard
did.
about Upper Deck has been like weird.
Well, there's a good reason for that. It was very weird.
I applied to work there. It was cool.
Um,
Like, didn't you work there also with Sean, God, the guy who wrote all the Greyhawk stuff?
Sean Reynolds.
Yes, Sean Reynolds,
Sean,
also an
yes,
amazing designer.
yes,
He's super kind. Um, yeah, like there was a lot of. It felt like Wizards South for a while.
Well, I mean, I got JD Weicker on
Yeah.
staff working with me there. There was a bunch of ex Wizards people that I got freelance work for, uh, writing card text for Versus and WoW, and we had Avatar: The Last Airbender, and we developed a couple of properties, original properties, all kinds
Hmm.
of stuff.
Good times. Yeah, it's nowadays all the Wizard employees go to Riot, which is basically
Yeah.
Magic South, but that's a different bag of fish entirely. Yeah, it's like I don't know. It just seems like that was such a weirdly momentous time when you were at TSR and doing all this stuff during all this transitory period from the end of the Gygax era all the way into third edition and
Yeah.
beyond. Where
Yeah.
and third edition, of course, being the big explosion of everything D&D, and like Grognar just hating it. And I'm like, dude, this is the coolest system ever. Are you kidding? I wish we were still in third edition, man. Like fourth and fifth were not my jam. What are you gonna do?
You know what? Third edition set the stage for what has come, but it had problems. Like I would not go back and play third edition. I play fifth edition. I play the current edition,
I mean, I play
but it
fifth edition
feels
because that's
like
easy
third
to get
edition when I
stuff.
play
I like the skills. I liked having a whole ton of skills to choose
Yeah.
from. It
You know what?
like
Here's the thing. I like that too. I like building characters like that.
right.
But when it comes to playing and advancing over the course of play over years, it's slow and it's a little more tedious is not the word I want, but
It is
it's
though.
measured. It's very measured, and I think that fifth edition in particular did a really good job of taking the best parts of all of the previous, including fourth edition, which is the one hugest outlier in the history of D&D.
Fourth edition was a great tactical board game and a terrible
It
RPG.
was yeah. If it had any brand mark on it other than D&D, it would have been a smash hit.
Oh yeah, it's terrible.
It's a
But
brilliant game.
I
Fourth
have
edition
nothing
is a
good to say about
brilliant
it.
game, but it's not what I want to play D&D with.
Fourth edition killed my D&D campaign, and I will never forgive it for that. But do you remember one of the first times I met you? When my wife, well, not first time I met you, first time I met you in Seattle. Like my wife and I, she was my girlfriend at the time. We had driven on a road trip from college, from the Bay Area to drive up to Seattle, and we just decided to take a nice long trip and meet with you at TSR or Wizard or whoever. I think it was Wizard at the time. It's like yeah,
It was in
2001,
Seattle.
so
It
it
was
must have been like
Wizards.
Wizards. Yeah, it was definitely Wizards. But like I remember you took me out to lunch, and it was funny because you took us to a steakhouse, and me and Heather were vegetarians. But it was like
It,
you, me, Heather, like my friend Andre, Monty Cook, James Wyatt, and I think Eric Mono was there, but I don't think he came to lunch with us. But I remember talking to Monty Cook and telling him about my campaign, and I was like, "Yeah, I level him like once a year." And he's like, "Once a year? What kind of terrible DM are you?" And I'm like, "There's my claim to fame. The creator of
yeah,
third edition just called me the world's worst DM." And I'm like, "Look, dude, we play slowly, but every time there's a big story moment, they level up, and it's great, and everybody's having a good time. Nobody's
that is
complaining about
yeah,
it."
but that's and yeah, everyone's game is different, right?
Right.
That's fine, but that's not the experience that that third edition was designed to give.
Mm,
But
yeah.
it doesn't matter. It doesn't
My
matter
group was
what it
having a
was
great
designed
time.
to
It
do.
doesn't matter.
Once it's out in the world, it's your game. And how
Mm,
if you and your players are happy, then you're playing it right.
right? That's exactly, I mean, that's effectively what I tell people with Magic too. I'm like, look, guys, the cards exist. Do what you want with them. Who cares? We're like, when I was running Commander, one of our big like mottos was like, I'm not going to Kool-Aid man into your house. If you want to play with these banned cards, if your group is okay with it, knock yourselves out. I don't care. I'm just here to make sure that when you're playing with strangers, you guys are having a baseline to talk to each other.
Yeah.
Otherwise, go at it. Do the weirdest crap you can. I don't
Yeah.
know. Because
I
like
mean,
it's
and that's one of the challenges I've always found that Magic has is that the people that are into it for the competitive side think that the rules for the tournament for tournament play have to apply to their home game.
mm-hmm.
And the people that just want to play and have fun, the ones who are a little bit closer to Spellfire
Yeah,
players,
like the kitchen table players.
they just want to use the cool cards and have a good time.
Yeah. And that is the culture clash that we're dealing with in the game, because it turns out that Wizard of the Coast realized that there's a billion times more random kitchen table players who want to just take cards and do cool things than there are tournament players. And that's why we have Final Fantasy the card game coming out next month. But like, I'm gonna buy a crap ton of it because I love Final Fantasy and Magic. And are you kidding? If they put out Final Fantasy D&D, I would buy it today too, because it's Final Fantasy.
Right?
Why wouldn't you? I mean, Doctor Who maybe not, but like somebody bought Doctor Who cards. They made Doctor Who. They made Fallout. They've chosen some weird IPs to go to
Yeah.
decide to spread out Magic's wings. And I'm like, you know what? Somebody is happy.
Yeah. I mean,
I
that was
guess.
one of the things. Interestingly, that's one of the things that they started doing at Upper Deck when I was there. was reaching out and doing versus system stuff that was not uh,
Like,
DC or Marvel.
yeah,
Uh, and they versus system was not big enough footprint to do it, and they also picked some weird things to do it with, but that same thought, it was a brilliant thought, and that's the thought behind that what Wizards doing. When
yeah, like,
you have the game when that everyone wants to play, you can do weird stuff with it.
yeah. I mean, the way I figure it is like, look, dude, the engine works, and more players is good for all of us because that means more people to play with. That means the game continues to exist. And fine, if they got brought in by Lord of the Rings or by, Street Fighter or whatever, who cares? They're here now. We can all celebrate it. It's like when people were like in the old days were like, "Oh, Greyhawk or nothing." It's like none of you Spelljammer fans. I'm like, shut up. It's D&D. If we're all playing D&D, it's fine. Like, you'll have a chance to impress them with your crap later, but
Yeah.
I'm glad that we've moved beyond Greyhawk, at least for God's sakes. Greyhawk sucks so much. Anyways,
Like,
that's just my
Greyhawk's
old man
back,
opinion.
baby.
It never went away. It just kind of depends on which gray-haired person is in charge. My hair is gray too, dude.
Yeah.
Like, I know you've known me since I was a child, but my hair is white.
Well, you know how old that makes me feel.
Yeah. You know what? That's true. That is very fair. But also, Stan, like, I know you've done like a million other things. Like, didn't you translate like the Legend of Zelda manga or localize it?
I did localization. I do a lot of localization for Viz over the years.
Yeah.
I do not translate. My Japanese skills are nowhere near good enough. I work
Mm,
with translators, but I
yeah,
get
they give you a script and then you make it actually
and then
readable.
I write it into something that's fun to read. In fact,
Yeah.
today I was working on the an upcoming volume of Gundam.
Oh,
Uh,
cool. Is it
so
G-Quux or whatever the hell they call it?
Gundam Thunderbolt is the name of the series, that the manga series, and I've been working on that since volume 1. Working
Oh,
on
nice.
volume 25 now.
I remember you made a Pokemon role-playing game that
Oh
was
yeah.
super fun in
You know
like
what? That's
1999 or whatever.
I've done like 4 interviews about that in this year. For some
Why?
reason, it's been in the air. But
Well,
yeah,
you
no,
should.
the Pokemon Junior adventure game is, by a very real measure, the best-selling role-playing game ever.
That's
Sold the most
what?
units in its first calendar year of sales. It sold 800,000 units
Holy crap!
in the first year and was considered an absolute failure, never to be talked of again.
What? What the hell?
All right, so the short version of this story is that we were working on it. Pokemon had boomed. We were working on it for reasons which are part of the longer version of this story, and
I mean, there was a Pokemon card game too that Wizard created and then gave back to Pokemon for some reason.
well, they Pokemon created the card game. Wizards just put it into English.
Oh, fair.
It was Pokemon was a huge thing in Japan, and the cartoon was breaking, and everyone wanted it, and so Wizards got the rights to do the English language version. So
Mm,
it came out from Wizards to begin
yeah,
with, and they didn't give it back. Pokemon wanted it back,
fair.
um, but Wizards had the rights to all that, and so. All right, I guess I'm telling part of the long story. So
Sorry, man.
the
That's my
I don't
fault.
know. I'm happy to. I'm just thinking of you and your audience.
My audience is here or not here. That's on their choice.
So the man, I just did 2 shows about this.
Okay,
Like,
fine. Don't.
no,
We'll just
no,
skip
it
past
just
it.
feels so
Okay.
weird. I've been telling this story every 6 months for a few for a few, a decade or 2, but I've told it 6 times now, and like I'm getting really good at it again. So the brand team, the D&D brand team, the RPG brand team, had a plan to uh, basically do a step up uh, marketing version to get people playing role playing games from a younger age.
Yeah.
And this, of course, was before when role playing games were still a scary thing, to teach the kids how to play and teach the parents that role playing was not frightening. and that was to create a series of games that would uh, be aimed at different age levels and produce or teach the kids the skills that you need to play role playing games at uh, levels where they are cognitively at the right age to learn that thing.
Mm.
And so the very first one was Pokemon Junior, the Pokemon Junior adventure game, a role playing game for 6-year-olds and their parents.
6-year-olds.
6-year-olds. And I knew Pokemon. When Pokemon came into the company, I and Teowin Woodruff were assigned to get smart on Pokemon. So we got to watch the shows and play the Game Boy game on company time. And so they asked me what I thought, and I had an idea for how the game should go. Complicated development, wound up bringing Bill Slavisek in to co-work on it with me. So together we created this game, Pokemon Junior, which is the game that got published. Now, this is also the time that Wizards is selling to Hasbro. And so we're just at the point where it's time to order the print runs for Pokemon Junior. And Hasbro's now in the field. We're like, great. If we got Hasbro, we can get this game into Walmart and Toys R Us and all these other places. That'll be great. And Hasbro said, whoa, ho, 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 ho. We will get it into there. You can sell to your people. And what's more, we will print our own versions of it because we don't trust that you're going to do a good enough job printing to our levels.
But they own you.
Yeah. Whatever. And so the TSR, or the Wizards and the Hasbro salespeople were kind of working at it. You know, we've got this game. We made it. Our team, we presented it to both of them. And the super funny thing is that initially the Wizards sales team said, well, we can't sell that. And we're like, you're kidding. You can totally sell this. It's Pokemon. It's not a card. It's not the Pokemon game. And we'd have to tell people what it is. Basically, they didn't want to do any work. And so they were like ready to say, no, we don't want to sell any. And then
the Wizards
Hasbro
marketing
comes
team
along.
is just your number one enemy, isn't it?
Yes. Yes. Hasbro comes along, looks at it and says, this is brilliant. We can sell a ton of these. We want to print 250,000 of them. And the Wizards sales team said, oh, you think this is something they'll sell? Well, we're going to print 500,000 of them. And basically,
what kind of arms race is this?
They bid themselves up and wound up printing 1.5 million of them.
Oh my God.
So it sold 800,000, but it didn't. It had 700,000 unsold
Jesus
in the
Christ.
warehouse. And so it was deemed a failure.
Well, yeah. Who would have thought that like the best selling of all? I mean, it's like the old joke. It's like, how do you make $1 million? I mean, how do you make like, $1,000 owning a game store? Start with $1 million.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah. I mean, and this is a story that goes back. Similar thing happened to Dragon Dice, where they just
Dragon Dice.
Or
Homelands, the expansion Magic Fans.
So there were a lot of lessons to be learned in that. First of all, I mean, it's complicated, right? It did not sell well in game stores. It didn't really sell that well in its initial run into Walmart or Toys R Us. So because they had so many left over, they remaindered it, and the price dropped. They originally was sold for $11. They dropped the price to $5, and it flew off the shelves at $5. So the lesson that should have been learned is that if we make a $5 version of this instead of an $11 version of this, which we absolutely could have, We had to, we got pushed to put more in that box.
Mm.
We absolutely could have made a $5 version of that, and and if we only printed 1,000,000 instead of a 1.5,
That would have
it
been
would have been super profitable. And but that was not the lesson that was learned. And so we had been working ahead, and where have I got? I got it over here. I still have one of only 2 or 3 mock-ups that were ever made for the second Pokemon Junior box.
wow.
Uh, this was, I don't know, see. So it says
Cerulean
number
challenge.
2, Cerulean Challenge. Number 1 was Pokemon Emergency. It's got a green box. You can still find it on eBay and stuff.
Okay, so how do you make a game for 6-year-olds?
It's a storytelling game. So the mechanic is you get when you find a Pokemon, you get a card. It's a book board of a card. It's a
Mm.
oversized card with your Pokemon, and on each side, it's got 2 sides, right? One side has one Pokemon power, the other side has the other Pokemon power, and each one has a rule, right? Roll the dice. If you get 3 or higher, you succeed. Or
Mm.
flip the Pokemon coin. If it's a heads, you succeed. If it's a tails, you don't succeed. Period.
Sure.
And then you write. The game is mostly in writing up the adventures for the parents. Now the idea, parents don't know Pokemon and they don't know role playing games, so we're explaining it to them as it's like telling your kid a bedtime story, but they get to decide what happens to some of the things.
Ah.
And so they were based on the episodes of the TV show, and we rewrote those storylines. And as things happened in the show, we come to a thing. It's like, okay, well, there's a log blocking the road. Ask your
What do
kids
you
what they
do?
want to do. How are
Mm.
their Pokemon going to do this? And then if they use their power and they succeed, the log is moved off the road. And if not, they can
Mm.
try
Mm.
again until they succeed. Oh, and then um, Team Rocket shows up. Here's
Mm.
rules for your Pokemon fights their Pokemon. And
That's
so, and
brilliant.
as you're going along, you get more Pokemon. And so we had a stack of cards, a big, thick, fat stack of cards that you started with the Bulbasaur or Squirtle or
Charmander.
Charmander or Pikachu because
Of
of the
course,
TV
because
show.
he's a mascot.
Right. But then we had a stack of other ones that you could find along the way and add to the Pokemon that you had.
Man, that sounds like a blast.
It was a, you know what? I I don't often say this about games that I designed, but it was a great game. It really was a great game. And one of the big disappointments I have is that it got wrapped up like this at volume 2. We were working on up to volume 5 already. We're somewhere in the design process. And the whole thing just got shut down.
Ah.
And Pokemon Company has never been interested in following up with it because they own it now. They could totally either make a product or just make it a downloadable or something
Mm.
that you put on your
Your
on their
website somewhere.
website. And I certainly have known people that work there. I've applied to work there several times, and some of them have thought it was a good idea, but no one who's had the ability to say yes has. So it never happened.
Ah, the games industry.
Yeah. So
Man, I don't know, dude. All I know though is that you have written some of the books that I still refer to today, like the Palanthus source book you wrote.
mm,
Is like one of my favorite just books on explaining a city in a role playing game. The Dragonlance bestiary that you wrote is like the most fun monster manual anybody's ever written, just fully in character and fully with beautiful artwork. My only problem with that is the font choice you guys made. I understand, but it also makes it a pain to read.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, the
But
idea that as a as a piece of art, it's beautiful. As a
oh yeah.
practical book, it could have been. I mean,
Mm,
the idea was that it felt like an in-world object, and
yeah.
it does. but in-world objects produced in a pre-printing press world are not
Yeah, it reminds me
not
of
as useful.
there was a book that was printed in Forgotten Realms, which was just a book of mundane items and objects.
Yeah,
That's like one of my favorite D&D role like resources. The
Aurora's
bestiary felt
Whole
exact.
Realm catalog.
Hmm? Yes,
Aurora's Whole Realm catalog.
that's like probably my all-time favorite just
Yeah,
D&D
that was. I
product.
certainly was thinking of that at least as one of the inspirations for what I was trying to do with the bestiary.
Man, I want to play D&D again, man. Now I miss this. I The only reason I stopped is because Dragonlance finally died, and then I went back to Magic because like I was like, there's nothing, and I had a child, and so like it's much easier to play Magic than to have to block out 6 hours for a
Right.
D&D game or whatever. Uh, yeah, and of course I decided to play Commander, which is 3 hours long, so it's not exactly shorter. But so it goes. But yeah, man, this has been a great talk. Thank you so much. What are you doing now? Because I know you've got a really cool podcast you've been doing that's like encapsulating the history of like what we've talked about, but with people who are not you.
So I started a podcast last year in like January of 2024. I It was all over the geekosphere. This is the 50th anniversary of D&D, and nothing was being done about it. And I thought,
Nope.
"Go, someone should be making a podcast interviewing the people that did that." I guess that's going to be me. And so I'd only wish that I thought about it in the November beforehand,
Mm,
because I thought about it in the second week of January, and in the fourth week of January, I had the first episode of 50 Years in the Dungeon.
mm,
The conceit was that I would be talking to people who worked on the game in house mostly. There were a couple of freelancers, but mostly there were people who worked either at TSR or at Wizards of the Coast in various different positions. And while we talked, I would, because this is a year, I would do a. So we kind of touched on this earlier. I'm a cartoonist. Hey, I'm a cartoonist, and so the thing to really make it interesting, I would do a live stream, and while we talked, I would begin to draw a cartoon homage to a classic piece of D&D art, and I would do.
those are so cool, by the way.
Thank you very much.
What do you do with them afterwards?
I still haven't finished all of them.
Okay,
Let
well,
me
fair.
let
We can talk
me
about that later.
yeah, this will come at the end of this. So, yeah, so I would, and I did one for each year. So I did, starting with 1974, I did one piece of art that came out from each year that D&D existed, while I was having conversations with people like
Who did you talk to representing 1974?
well, I didn't, you know what? I didn't, at first I thought I would try and make that direct connection, and then I realized
It would
that
be too hard. Weird.
yeah. Uh, the conversations are very similar to the ones that you have here that we're having. In fact, almost exactly the same. Like I have, so all the conversations break into three parts. The first part is, how did you get into gaming? How did gaming come into your life? And then the second part is stories about the your time working in the hey,
Sure.
let's talk shop. And then at the end I switch it off, and it's like, okay, we're at the 50th anniversary, let's just kind of broadly talk about that. What do you think? Looking back, what do you think at how far we've come? Looking forward, where do you think we're going? Looking at today, what do you make of the current, you know, D&D and TTRPG milieu?
Mm.
Um, and yeah, so like I say, while we're doing that, I spend about an hour doing the sketch, and then after the show, I finish the drawing. And people who are subscribed to the show's Substack, free Substack at 50yearsinthe or are members of my Patreon, patreon.com/Stanex, that's STANNEX, get to see them first, and then I release them publicly
Nice.
after that. around the holidays I fell behind and I haven't caught up. So I've got um, everything through 2020 finished. All the pieces of art through 2020. I'm currently working on the 2021 finish.
That's
And
super cool.
so yeah, so I've got 47 or so finished pieces. I did a um, calendar last year that I did a little Kickstarter for, where I used pieces of art from there. Doo-doo. So that was done. When I'm done, I have it in my mind to make an art book with them and write up some.
Like a blurb for each one.
Yeah. I
That'd be sweet.
also am working with some folks. I wish I also had thought about this ahead of time. I didn't get people to sign creative releases. So while the interviews are public and they can be quoted wherever you like, I feel it would be unethical of me to do anything significant with them without the permission of the people that I talk to.
Yeah, but that's just a bunch of emails you got to send out.
Right. But so I'm working on getting a release form that I can get everyone hopefully to sign. And then I may do, extended transcripts of the shows that.
That'd be sick.
So yeah, so I talked to a lot of people who worked there from no one who was there in 74, but people who were there
Yeah,
by
because most of those guys are.
77, Steve Winter, Steve Sullivan.
Have we talked to Skip?
I talked to Skip. I certainly talked to Jeff Grubb. So yes, I've talked. You know what? I did an interview with Jim Ward about 3 weeks before he passed away. None of us saw that coming. Oh boy. I feel lucky. The show has been great because it's been an excuse to sit down and talk with people I know but almost never run into anymore. It's like conversations with old friends more than
literally why I do this show.
Yeah. So that's what my show's like.
Dude, I'm just going through your guest list right now, and I'm like, I want to talk to all these people. The problem is you know them all, so you have Ed Greenwood, for God's sakes.
Yeah. Yep. Ed Greenwood. And there are a few people that have come on there. I won't name who they are, but there are people who, when I reached out, the reply was, I never do these things. I always say no, but because it's you, Stan, okay. And I guarantee it's just going to be a friendly conversation and you'll have a good time. And they do. There are people who've said no, but
sure.
I respect that too.
I've reached out to different people, and some of them have been like, look, I've told my life story on 38 things already. I've got nothing else to say. I don't really want to talk. And I'm like,
yeah,
that's fine. I get it. I won't bother you. Peace. And then there's people who are like, yeah, well, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, it's just a conversation. You just talk. I will ask you questions once in a while, but if we're just going to talk, there's nothing. The hard ones are when people are expecting it to be an interview and they answer a question and it's dead stop.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no. We gotta have a flow. It's a conversation. It's not I'm not going to collate these for an article later. This is just talking.
But, when I send the pre-show email to people, I say my vision of this, that it's like, when you're at a game con and they've put you on a meet the guest panel, and it's you and someone and it's Sunday morning at 11 and no one shows up. There's like 30 people there, but you've got to do it anyway. And you just hang out and talk to your friend. And occasionally one of those 30 people asks a question from the audience. And everyone I tell that to, they go, yeah, that's it. That's what I want the show to be like. And that's how it is. They are friendly conversations with either people who are legitimately my friends or co-workers that I know very well.
Yeah. Eventually, though, you will run out of those because I know I've run out of them.
Yeah.
But
here's the other thing is I don't let it go more than an hour and a half. Right? I tell them
my show's captain. This is the longest show I've done in a while.
and I could keep going,
Yeah, I
but
know because I like your stories. Otherwise, I
right.
wouldn't be doing.
So, but
I run a
we get
tight
there
ship normally.
and I say, all right, I tell them we're going to stop there. If you're worried, we'll only go 60 minutes if you're not comfortable, and I won't let it go more than an hour and a half. And
Yeah,
almost invariably, the show ends with me saying, well, I guess I'm going to have you on again. And them saying,
right.
yes, please ask me back.
It's like I just want to tell you more stories. I'm like, yeah, dude. That's the thing I've learned from this is that once you get people going, everybody's got stories to tell,
Yeah.
and I want to hear them. That's why I do this show because, like, I've heard all my stories. I
Yeah.
don't want my stories. I want your stories. But like, you got to talk to Peter Atkinson. I need to get him on this show.
Yeah.
He's and like Harold Johnson, the creator of Talatus, the first D&D product I ever bought, and probably one of my favorite dungeons of all time and life changing. Dude, meeting. So this past summer and in last year at Gen Con, I got to go, and Margaret had me on like the Dragonlance panel that she did for like 40 years Dragonlance.
Yeah.
It was like me and Jeff Grubb, Tracy and Margaret, and like their new editor or whatever. And I'm just like, what am I doing up here? Like I should be in the audience in the first row. It's like, fan get not. I am not the like being the actual like the dude people come to see is weird because it's so often my whole life has been the other side. And like at the end of it, like all the people who are in the audience, there are a whole bunch of people who Margaret had used to work with, and like Harold Johnson is there, and I'm like, but I'm your biggest fan. It was so sick. It was so sick. And like, getting to hang out with Jeff Grubb. I mean, you get to hang out with Jeff all the time. I get that. But for me, it was very, very
Oh, I
cool.
understand. Jeff Jeff has a love-hate relationship with his history, right? Because the number of us who are now old gray beards too came the into the office and like, Jeff, wow, Jeff, I played your stuff when I was shut up.
You wrote a book when I was born, and I love reading
Well,
it.
he was saying he often says now that the difference is that's what it used to be, and now when he goes to shows, people walk in and say, "Yeah, we were going through Grandma's stuff, and we found a book with your name on it."
Oh man, it's been great, Stan. Thank you so much for coming on. I really, really appreciate this. And
I had a great time. You know what?
yeah,
Let's do it again.
absolutely, dude. I will listen. I've been listening to your stories since 1997, and I see no reason to stop. Uh, I'm grateful for our very long friendship and for everything that you've put out there and all the inspiration you've given me over the years. Uh, I really appreciate you. So I'm so glad we had this chance to sit and just chill and chat. Like, I don't think we've had like a conversation like this ever. Maybe a long time ago.
Not this long, but yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, when I
I mean,
take
we
you to
hang out all the time,
restaurants
though.
that you can't eat anything at, we have to talk about something.
Anyways, dude, if folks wanted to find you on social media or on wherever, where would they
All
go?
right, so almost every social media you can find me at Stannex, STANNEX. As I said, Patreon is a one I like to plug.
Yeah, I mean, don't we all?
Patreon.com/Stannex. Um,
I'm just telling you, put
Facebook,
more
Blue
comics on like Blue
Sky.
Sky and Twitter, dude, because like people need, if you put them out there, then I can share them with people.
Say that again.
If you put your comics and stuff on Blue Sky, then I can share them with people.
I do.
More. You like use it once every like month, bro. Like, come on. Get with the posting. Anyways.
All right. Yeah. So you can find me on Blue Sky. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook. All those are Stannex. You can,
Yeah.
as I say, if the on YouTube, however, because of some problems I had last year, you can now find me as the real Stannex. Um, all one word, no spaces, no capitals. YouTube.com/@ the real Stannex. And
Mhm.
that's where you can find the archives for the show we talked about, 50 Years in the Dungeon, and my other show, which just completed its second year, which is called Random Encounters, which is an improv cartooning show. And each
That's
episode,
cool.
I use random encounter tables and audience participation to create drawing prompts, and then I draw them while you're watching. I usually do 3 drawings a week, 3 drawings per show, and we just had our 104th episode, which is I hadn't skipped a week, so that's 2 years.
Damn.
And to celebrate that, I attempted to do 100 drawings in 100 minutes. And although I didn't reach that goal, I got a lot of drawings done in 2 hours.
That's a lot of drawing. You know what? I used to really enjoy watching you on the 24-hour comic days.
Yeah.
Where you put up one comic an hour or something. Those are always fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Like I've been following Sand for decades, so it's just kind of fun. But anyways, my friends, as always, you can find me on Blue Sky at Shivam Bhatt. You can find me at YouTube. You can find this podcast anywhere podcasts are sold, or on YouTube every Tuesday, thanks to my editor, Dan. You can also hear me on Shivam Wheeler Love Magic or on the Chronicles of Dragonlance podcast. And remember, my friends, it's not magic without the gathering, and we'll see you next time.
Shing.